On to current business, 2013 budget amendments, the first one in front of us. Resolution number 2014-01, and this is to move some monies within the fire department budget. There's no, it's within the budget, taking money from membership and dues, supplies and expenses, and town hall grounds, and moving it into, decreasing supplies and expenses in the ambulance and town hall grounds, and moving it into dues and membership, supplies and expenses for the ambulance and town hall grounds.
Mr. Chairman, so we can move on this or discuss it, I will move to adopt resolution number 2014-01.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Discussion? Seeing nothing? All in favor?
Aye.
Actually, this has to be a roll call vote, I apologize. Supervisor Laska?
Yes.
Chairman Merrick, yes. Supervisor Bansky?
Yes.
Supervisor Fisher?
Yes.
Supervisor Wolf?
Yes.
And then on to resolution number 2014-02. This is for snow and ice removal. We will be short $11,700 from through December 31st with regards to the labor from Wolf Paving. There's several areas in the budget we can pull money from. Is there a motion and a second for discussion?
Where do you plan on pulling it from?
Well, we should probably make a motion and get a second and discuss it.
Don't we need to know where we're taking it from before we make a motion?
I think the discussion would be to determine where we're gonna take the monies from. Attorney Macy?
No, I would agree. Whoever makes the motion should say where they're gonna pull the money from. The maker of the motion can do that.
Mr. Chairman, I will move to adopt resolution number 2014-02, which will increase the appropriation for line or account number 53310.7 entitled Snow and Ice Removal Contracted Services, that increase being in the amount of $11,700. And included in my motion will be a decrease in appropriation in the same amount of $11,700. That money to be taken from line item or a budget item 51310.7 contracted services legal fees, and I so move.
Second?
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? Supervisor Fisher?
Yes.
Supervisor Laska?
Question.
Yes.
I just received this not long ago. Contracted services was what number, please?
53310.7.
The legal fee number, Mike, is 51310. There's a $41,931 surplus in that account.
I got it. Thank you. Yes.
Supervisor Bansky?
Yes.
Chairman Merrick is yes. Supervisor Wolf?
Yes.
Motion passes. And on to 8B, Cooperative Intergovernmental Agreement for Training Facilities and Related Equipment, Materials, and Services. Chief Dan?
given a draft copy of an agreement between Town of Waukesha, and it doesn't have our names and stuff in it. We have to address that and complete that. But the agreement is between us and the city of New Berlin to share in the use of their training tower and training grounds. The document states that the department would pay to New Berlin $2,000 annually to go to an account towards the maintenance of the facility, and we would provide a representative to the board that would oversee staff scheduling and operation of the facility. It's a huge benefit to the fire department to have that opportunity. It's a substantial facility. We can do live burns in their facility. It's 3 stories high. It's much closer than going all the way to WCTC, and at $2,000 a year, it's far cheaper than going to WCTC. We can use it any time that suits our schedule. It's an extremely great opportunity for us. The contract can be broken by either party at any time for pretty much any reason. I think it's a pretty reasonable project for us to enter into, and it's a great intergovernmental opportunity for us.
Dan, do you know offhand where the language is regarding the contract being able to be broken by either?
It's towards the very end of the document, it talks about terminating agreements.
Is it 16?
Yeah, it's 16. Attorney Macy, have you had any opportunity advance to look at this, or?
It was in my packet, but since I was not familiar with your procedures, I didn't want to be so presumptuous as to review it until I knew your procedures. So I did not. I skimmed it. I read it. I'm assuming that Attorney Blum, from the city attorney from the city of New Berlin, had a hand in it because of the format that it's in. I know Mark. So the answer to your question is I have not. You could approve it, and I was going to ask you tonight for guidance as to whether you wanted to approve it subject to legal reviews, or approve it without any legal review, which is your prerogative, or to wait and get my legal review. But I read through it very briefly just as part of my packet, but I did not make a legal review of it. If you have specific questions, that'd be great, because then you could tell me what questions or what issues you might have with the document.
I can, I mean, if we want to do that now, I'm happy to have the conversation now. My first question is on the first page under C, and Dan, you might be able to answer this as well, which is why I'm asking while you're up there. It says, therefore, based on mutual promises and covenants set forth herein, and other good and valuable consideration, the receipt and sufficiency of which is hereby acknowledged. Do we know what that is?
I believe they're referring to the $2,000 payment.
Is that,
That's
oh,
general.
you would agree to that? Okay. Under the first paragraph, it says that the departments agree to share the use and maintenance costs of the city of New Berlin training tower, training pops, training equipment, and training grounds, which, if I read the rest of this correct, the training materials speaks about, under number 7, contribution of funds in addition to the annual payment identified in 5. Props, equipment, etc. must be mutually agreed to by all the parties. It seemed like this contract allowed for the expansion of the definition of parties to be more than Town of Waukesha, New Berlin. So it could be, Vernon, it could be anybody inserting here.
It's correct. Right now, this process, we're looking at, there's 4 departments involved: the Berlin, us, Town of Vernon, and Test Corners, the 4 departments here in the corner.
Okay, and my question was, should this in some way describe the apportionment of those materials, or are we to just assume that that's what mutually agreed, or what if we don't agree to the apportionment they want to set to us, but the other 3 is majority rule going to be what is mutually agreed to?
Well, it says all of the parties have to agree to it, so.
Well, it distinguishes in another portion of the contract in paragraph 14, it distinguishes that the agreement may be amended at any time by unanimous consent. So my question would be, on one side, they are purposely describing a unanimous requirement versus a mutual agreement, those two feel like a different flavor. And maybe that's something that in the future, I mean, maybe you wanna work that out. I've got a few others that I think are more concerning to me. I did check with the insurance company, we don't have any issues with that, just as an FYI, I talked with them today. Paragraph 16, this termination by either party. You go into these things, you never think you're terminated, but we're walking away from WCTC to go here because it's better by whatever definition you want to apply. About halfway through paragraph 16, it says that we have the right to withdraw, and it says we have the effective date, you give 30-day notice and we can then withdraw. However, it says then, the withdrawal from this agreement shall not affect a party's liability or obligation under the terms of this agreement. The $2,000 number says that we're obligated, it uses the same language, to pay the $2,000 annually as long as New Berlin makes that available to us, and it gives them the sole discretion. I don't think they're trying to do something cryptic like, hey, if you quit, we're still gonna charge you $2,000, but it sure seemed like the language afforded them that ability. Otherwise, why would that sentence be there, that it shall not affect our liability or obligation under the term of the agreement? That's really the only questions I have. Other than that, I love the idea, I think it's a great idea. I don't know if you can make an some type of approval for that and give you the keys of the car to work out the language so that we're protected in that way, or if that's a valid concern.
Well, my answer would be those are all valid concerns. I take a very simplistic approach that if anybody reads it and they read it differently or they have concerns about the language, we haven't done our job of doing the language as well as we could. So those are all great points, and that's the purpose for getting the information prior. So the options before you tonight, I think if I understood your question, was are you comfortable approving it subject to these issues being addressed, or did you want to table it and bring it back? Obviously, Vernon hasn't acted on it yet, to the best of my knowledge, because I'm their attorney, and so, and I haven't seen it on an agenda. I mentioned that to the chairman earlier today.
Correct.
And Test Corners, Muskego, that's also our client, so I have not seen it come through there, but I may not see it.
This corner's already paid their funds even.
Okay, and so I don't do the work for the city of Muskego, so they may not have brought it. Test Corners is sort of an interesting, different the type of entity as I recall, but so for the board, the policy decision is whether or not you want to approve it subject to the legal review, whether you want to table it and then get these things worked out and bring it back. Those seem to be the options you're speaking of, am I correct? And I can assure you though, if there are any substantive changes, we bring it back regardless. Okay, if they can't be worked out, we bring it back, and if there's anything substantive, like for instance, your first comment, I would just wanna, I would make sure paragraph 7 reads consistently with paragraph 14 and paragraph 16 where they use the unanimous consent. We would use that same, we would recommend to Mark that they use the same type of language. We wouldn't change it substantively, we would just clean that up. Similarly, we would make it very clear that upon termination, you're done, Now, obviously, his point that he's trying to make there is if there was outstanding liability while you were there, you aren't going to relieve of it just by, well, I think it's more if somebody's seriously hurt and we're in the middle of litigation, you're not going to be able to get out from under that by just leaving, but you want to make it clear that the day you leave, your liability and your exposure.
Correct.
One question I did have when I skimmed it was, I'm assuming, and you all probably know, you don't get your money back if you leave in the middle of the year. I think you've made that commitment, and you won't get a pro rata share back. I wouldn't think that you would expect that, but if you did, I need to know that so I could take that back to them.
And I thought they had that in here.
Did they? I'm sorry.
Yeah, there was language in there that if you do terminate in the middle of the year, that they would prorate
Okay.
the
I
refund.
didn't see that in 16, so I didn't see it, so thank you. So,
I would make a motion to approve then, subject to the attorney cleaning up the language.
I'll second.
Any further discussion?
I have a question, if I might, Mr. Chairman. Probably catch Dan off guard, but obviously this would come out of your department budget. Do you know what line number or account or or is that something that you could share that information with
That'll
us?
be part of the, part of the training budget.
Part of the training. Okay. All right, thank you.
Anything further? Supervisor Laska?
Yes.
Supervisor Fisher?
Yes.
Chairman Merrick, yes. Supervisor Bansky?
Yes.
And Supervisor Wolf?
Yes.
And then we'll move on